Hey everybody, my name's Mike Demaro, and I want to talk about President Lincoln's assassination. It was 150 years ago since we lost the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. He went to Ford's Theater and was shot by John Wilkes Booth, and then the next morning he died across the street from there. It's been 150 years since that event happened. And why am I talking about this? I'm talking about this because I happen to find out that I am related to President Abraham Lincoln. I am a distant cousin of his. And President Lincoln was a great guy. And it was too soon, 150 years ago, when we lost him. You know, I was glad that I learned about President Lincoln when I was going to high school. Or throughout my education, you know. President Abraham Lincoln was a great man because he helped keep this country together in its worst times, you know. And I'm glad to be related to a great man like President Abraham Lincoln. You know, it's hard to believe that we lost him at such a young age of 56. And he did so much, you know, and his life was taken away by an assassin named John Wilkes Booth. But, you know, I am very glad to know that he was a great president, you know. And if you want to know, he was my fifth cousin 6 times removed, which is pretty close, you know. You know, President Lincoln was a great man. And, you know, he was a great president. Imagine if he wasn't shot. What would his life be? You know? He would serve out the rest of his second term, and then he would enjoy the rest of his life. You know? But we'll never know. You know, there was a dream that he had a week before this event happened, where he was lying in bed and he was dying. You know how ironic it was that he thinks his time was almost up, and then a week later after his dream, his time was up. How strange was that for President Lincoln to think about that, and yet it happened. You know, it's weird. Now, on April 9th, 1865, there was an agreement to end the Civil War. Yeah, and Lincoln wanted to celebrate that achievement. And he felt so happy. And that was one of the only times that we had a smiling picture of President Lincoln. He decided to go to Ford's Theater to catch a show. You know? And it was great that he got a chance to celebrate and got to see the show, you know. But it would be his last time, his last fun event, is whatever. Because he was shot to death. And, you know, I felt sad, you know. Well, it was 150 years ago and I wasn't alive, but even today I felt sad that he was shot and killed. You know, what was remarkable was when the funeral procession made it across country, it made a stop in New York City. And I was watching the Roosevelts back in September when it was on PBS, and Teddy Roosevelt saw the funeral procession of Abraham Lincoln from his apartment window when he was only like 6.5 years old. And I don't know where he got the passion, if he got the passion to run for president because of Lincoln, or what was going on. But probably Teddy Roosevelt didn't realize that one day he would take the Oval Office. He would take the White House, you know? he'd become president of the United States as well. How strange was that? Now, here's another fun fact for you probably didn't learn, or you probably didn't know. Walt Disney. Walt Disney's favorite president was Abraham Lincoln. And he admired him so much. But here's a fact you probably didn't know. Both him and President Lincoln are related to each other by distant cousins. I don't know the relationship between the two, but they are related. Both him and, it's strange that both of them were related. Walt Disney probably didn't know that he was related to Abraham Lincoln. Oddly enough, I am related to Walt Disney as well. Walt Disney was my 7th cousin 6 times removed. If I have it correctly. I'm going to check it up right now to make sure of it, but, But it's strange that, both Lincoln and Disney were related. And they both had the same dreams and visions, And it's strange how I looked it up. He's my 7th cousin 6 times removed. Both Lincoln and Disney are 6 times removed. Lincoln 5th, Disney 7th. It's strange that, how it can be related like that, And I was talking to my mom, and she remembered her brother, my uncle, and how she remembered him and looking at him and resembled him as President Lincoln. And then I told my mom before how my grandfather my grandfather resembles Walt Disney. It's strange how my grandfather looks like Walt Disney and my uncle looks like Abraham Lincoln. How strange and how weird can that be? It's just the way it happens. It happens that where you happen to be distant cousins from each other, But going back to Lincoln here, he was buried in Springfield, Illinois. Hopefully someday I'll make a trip out to Springfield, Illinois to pay my respects to my cousin, the late President Abraham Lincoln. But, Now, I don't know if you guys watched the special American Ride, but Stan Ellsworth did a special, or did an episode back in December 2012, and I'll post the link on here. American Ride is on BYU TV, and he talks about the story about how Lincoln was shot, and the assassination, and everything else that led to the events about Lincoln. It's called Legacy of Lincoln. That's the episode title. It was on season 3. If the link doesn't work on here, then you can go on byutv.org and look up shows American Ride season 3, and you'll see Legacy of Lincoln, which was aired on December of 2012. And Stan Ellsworth does go into detail about the assassination and everything else, dealing with it. But anyways, I was glad that I got involved with doing my family tree, because look at how many relatives I am related to. Look at how many people I'm related to. I'm related to President Lincoln, I'm related to Walt Disney, I'm related to late Mayor Teddy DeMauro of Springfield. The late mayor of Springfield now. The mayor of in the 70s and 80s. I was glad I took on that challenge, because If it wasn't for me taking on that challenge, I would have never known how many cousins I have in this world. You know? But I do love learning about President Lincoln. And I try to learn about him as much as I can. He's probably one of my favorite presidents because the fact is I am related to him. And how he saved this country. You know. Even though the country had war and he wanted to make sure he wanted to have peace in this world, you know. But I'm glad that he was president, and I'm glad that he served during the Civil War. And I'm glad he was able to bring peace. You know. I'll talk to you guys all later. Enjoy the links that I provided below in the description.